Hey everybody, welcome back to Cityscape Brewing. I'm Dennis Fields, and today we're brewing up a beer grained in glass for a beer competition that I'm doing where I need to showcase salt in a beer. And so when thinking about the beer style that I want to do, I thought a lot of other people would kind of go with like a goza or like something like a I don't know, salted caramel or something that you would be able to kind of think about salt. But I kind of wanted to go away from those in case somebody else did that. So I came up with a beer style called chips and salsa, where I'm going to be replicating a beer like you're eating a tortilla chip with some salsa. So you'll have the breadiness from some Munich, light Munich malt, and the maize, which we're using 3 pounds of flaked maize in this. And then you're also going to get the salty flavor of the chips with some sea salt added to the last part of the boil. And then during the secondary process, we're going to be adding some peppers through like a tincture to add just a hint, just a small slight hint of some chili flavor towards the end of the beer. So I'm going to be using some poblano peppers in the secondary. We're going to add hops that kind of give off some lime flavors, and we'll talk about that as we go through the process. But at the end of the day, hopefully we'll be making a beer that tastes like we're eating chips and salsa to some extent, but still having kind of that light, crisp, refreshing beer as if you were drinking, say, like a Corona or some other Mexican lager that you would drink in a hot summer day. So chips and salsa is the beer we're brewing. Grab a pint and follow along. All right, we're gonna go ahead and get our grains all milled up. You don't need to do that with the flaked maize. If you haven't done this before, it's kind of like oats or barley. You don't need to run this through your grain mill, just get it all gunned up. So we're just gonna throw this right in the mash when we get to that point. We are gonna go through our other grains though. We'll pour those in. I've got a pound of Munich malt. I think it's 2 1/4 pounds of 2-row and 4 pounds of Pilsner. And I'll have the complete ingredients list in the video description below for you guys. The Munich malt is what gives it that kind of bready tortilla flavor. And then the rest is just a base malt to keep the beer nice and light and crisp. So we'll go ahead and mill those up now. All right, I have my 3.75 gallons of strike water. We're gonna heat this up to 163 degrees or so based on the mash sparge calculator on brewger.com to hit our target mash temperature of 152. So we'll get that started now. All right, strike water is ready. We're gonna go ahead and mash in. Don't forget to add your flaked maize, which is not part of your milled grains. Get those all good and mixed around and make sure there's no dough balls. Nothing stuck to the side or clumping. All right, we're gonna go ahead and get the temperature of this thing real quick. Shooting for 152. And we're rated at 154, so I'm gonna go ahead and just keep stirring this thing. And we'll take another temperature reading, see if we're getting close to 153 or so, and then we'll throw the lid on there for 60 minutes. All right, while our mash is sitting, doing its thing, we're gonna go ahead and do our strike water. We're gonna heat that up. We got 5 gallons. We're gonna heat that up to about 170, 180 degrees. All right, our mash rest is almost done. We're gonna start our Vorloff process in a second. I'm gonna be using my recirculation tool that I crafted the other day in a Brew Day video, so go ahead and check that out. It's kind of a DIY batch sparge recirculation tool. So when I use my normal pitcher to fill up some wort, and then I was going to recirculate slowly back into my grain, I can actually just pour it in this pitcher, and then it comes down this tube and recirculates through this screen here and kind of helps distribute it like you would if you were just using a lauter tun and it was slowly trickling over your mash. So first time trying this, and we're going to see if it works today. And the idea is I pour this in that pitcher and I can continue to do what I'm doing now without having to wait while I slowly pour that back in over the mash. So I'm going to raise this up over the volume level so it slows and stops. I'm going to pour this guy right in the top of here. Perfect, working like exactly like I want it to. Just trickling over the grains slowly and not creating any holes down there. That's awesome. I might even put it off to one side. This will allow me to do this 4 or 5 times quicker than I normally would have been able to do it. And now I can just let the last of this trickle out, and then I've started pouring my first runnings into my kettle. So did that about 4 or 5 times, and it was way faster than slowly pouring it and having to stop each time. All right, so when we went to go do our first runnings, it really started trickling out pretty slow by the end of it, and I want to make sure that I'm not going to get a stuck sparge when I'm doing my batch sparge process. So when I add my water here, I'm going to add a little bit of these rice hulls to make sure that I don't get a stuck sparge in my second runnings here and final runnings. Once we let that mash sit, I'm going to add the hot water. I'm going to let that sit for 10-15 minutes, and then we're going to get our full volume, hopefully doing that same Vorloffing process that we just did, and get that up to about 7.2 gallons. So we'll see you then. All right, we have collected our 7.2 gallons, and we're going to go ahead and start the boil process. All right, while our pot is getting up to a boil, I'm going to go ahead and start dividing out our hops based on our hop additions. We're going to have 2 hop additions of Sabro hops. We're going to have 1 of Saz, and then 2 of Motueka pellet hops, 2 ounces of those. So we're going to divide up, we're going to do a 1/2 ounce, 2 1/2 ounce portions of Sabro. And then we have the Saz hops already portioned out. This is a 3/4 of an ounce. And then we have these already portioned out at 1 ounces each. As well for the Motueka hops. These will give like a lime flavor to the beer, which I'm really excited about, to help with that chips and salsa theme we're going with. I'm also going to be adding a Vorloff tablet at 15 minutes left in the boil. And then we're going to do some salt, sea salt with no iodine. We'll do 1 ounce. All right, just before boiling here, we're going to add our firm cap. This prevents boilovers and will help while we're doing boilovers for the wort and when we add hop additions later. I also took a little sample for our hydrometer reading using a little medicine syringe, and we're going to take that hydrometer reading next once that cools down. All right, now our beer is at a rapid boil. I'm going to go ahead and add my hop spider here. If you haven't seen the video of me making this DIY hop spider, go ahead and check that out. I'll have that in the video description. You can make one yourself. You don't need to buy one. It just uses a paint strainer bag here that will catch all of the hops. And we're going to add our bittering hops, which is 1/2 ounce of Sabro. All right, so we took our little sample for our hydrometer or refractometer reading, excuse me, take our gravity and see where we're at pre-boil. Looks like we're sitting at about 1.042 for pre-boil gravity, so we'll make a note of that. All right, so we are about 15 minutes away from the end of the boil. We're gonna go ahead and throw our Vorloff tablet in there. All right, guys, it is about that time. We're going to go ahead and add our salt and our last round of hop additions. We got about 5 minutes left in our boil. So I'm going to go ahead and add our 1 ounce of sea salt. Give it a good stir around, and then I'm going to add our hops, which we are doing a 1/2 ounce of Sabro, 3/4 ounce of Saz, and a full ounce of Motueka. Motueka hops. Push those guys down in there. When I have this many hops in the hop splitter, I like to give it a lift up and get underneath this bag a little bit with my spatula and let it drain out a few times so it doesn't get all stuck. That way it'll really get those hop oils out of there. So get around, stir around that bag, and then lift it up a few times. It'll really help get the hop oils out. And then once this last 5 minutes is done, we're gonna go ahead and start cooling down, and then we're gonna whirlpool as we're cooling down 1 more ounce of the Motueka hops to give it that lime flavor that we're going for. All right, I have the wort cool down under 80. I'm gonna go ahead and get it transferred into my carboy and then finish cooling it in my fermentation chamber down to 58, where I'm gonna be, which is what our pitching temperature is gonna be. I use this strainer to help aerate the beer, so it helps get a lot of oxygen in there before we pitch our yeast, and it helps catch any hop particles that made it through our hop spider. So. Don't forget to do a hydrometer reading. All right, last but not least, we're going to go ahead and pitch our yeast. I'm cutting that open just now. And then we'll give her a good shake, and we will close her up and be back after fermentation is active to check on it. All right, everybody, the day's come where we have finished fermentation and we're about to transfer our beer here from our primary into our secondary. I have already prepped the poblano peppers. What I've done is I've went ahead and I've chopped it in half. I've removed all of the seeds and the veining from the inside. That's what gives it the heat. And we're not going for a lot of heat in this beer. We're really just trying to go for that chili flavor. And so I've measured out 1 ounce of those chopped up poblano peppers, and then I've soaked it in just enough vodka in order to cover the peppers a little bit. And I'm gonna let that soak for about 30 minutes or so. Then we're gonna take that and we're gonna put that in our carboy and dump it in a paint strainer bag so we can easily take that out before we go ahead and keg the beer. So we're gonna put that in the bottom of our carboy. I'm gonna purge it of oxygen with some CO2, and then we're gonna rack the beer on top of it from our primary into our secondary. An easy way to purge one of your kegs or carboys is to actually take one of your CO2 lines off, shut off the manifold or a valve, whatever you have coming from your regulator, and then go ahead and take off the gas hose, and then go ahead and now this will come out. You can go ahead and slowly turn on the manifold, and then you can purge any oxygen out of a carboy fairly easily. And then I just go ahead and put my hose right in the top of this when I'm racking from here, and it will help eliminate any oxygen from getting splashed around in there when we're transferring to the carboy. It's also a good idea to go ahead and get a hydrometer reading while you're at it. So go ahead and do that while it's filling up. All right, now that's all there is to it. So we've got our peppers in here. Again, we're gonna let that soak for about 3 days. I'm gonna put that into my fermentation chamber again. I'm not gonna cold crash it all the way down, but I'll probably keep it in the low 50s or so. Just let that sit for about 3 days, let them get all that peppery goodness that we're looking for, that chili flavor out of the peppers that we have in there. Then we're gonna go ahead and pull those and keg it next, so stay tuned. All right, so we're back for keg day, and I've actually only been about 2 days, and I've been thinking about it a little bit more, and because I want this chili flavor to be very, very subtle, I really want to err on the side of caution and take this beer and keg it a little bit early, just so I can taste the beer after 2 days of being in the fermenter. If I need to, I can always add more peppers or the same peppers that I pulled out back into the keg for a couple of more days if I need to. So I'm gonna purge my keg with a little bit of CO2 using one of the existing lines in my kegerator. And then I'm gonna go ahead and just rack that using my racking cane. Try not to splash it around, that'll help with oxidation. So we're gonna go ahead and get that transferred. We're gonna take a little sample and we'll come back and see how that tastes. All right, so I got a little sample. Surprisingly very, very clear. This is actually just a little fogged up because it's hot in my garage, but very crystal clear beer. Very happy with how it turned out looks wise, because I was going for that, faux lager, crisp kind of taste and look. And then we're gonna try out the beer sample. Again, it's been sitting at about 55 degrees, and so it's not completely cold crash, but it's not warm at all. And so I wanted those peppers to be able to kind of move around in there, but at the same time, not completely crash all at the bottom. So doing a little drive-by, I can get both the salt and the peppers, and that's awesome. That's exactly what I was going for. Definitely can smell the chilies in the beer right now. And that's exactly the flavor that I was going for. So I'm actually glad that I pulled that off, because I want that chili pepper flavor to be really on the back end, and that's what it is. So you definitely get that salt, which is a requirement of this beer challenge that we're doing, but then also just a hint of peppers, and that's exactly what I'm going for. You can still actually taste the bitterness of the hops, and I'm hoping all of this stays together as I keg it and carbonate it. So I'm gonna let that sit on. I've got to actually enter this beer in a few days. So I'm putting it on 30 degrees pressure for a couple of days, get that carved up, and then I'm gonna bottle it and submit those bottles, and we'll see how it goes. We're gonna be back after this thing gets carved up, and we're gonna taste it together. I'm gonna let you know my honest opinion, whether I like it, whether I don't, what I would change after it gets all carved up and we get it in front of us finished. Well, here it is. The final version. Chips and salsa. Very clear, very refreshing beer. Great head retention. It's got the salty aroma. You can smell the peppers right away. And what I love the most about it is the flavor. It really hung on to all of those things that we were going for. So you can definitely pick out the peppers. You can grab the salt right away, but it feels like you're eating chips and salsa in a beer. Kind of like sitting on the beach, having a Mexican lager like a Corona and chips and salsa on the side. And so this is really what I was going for. Let's go in for a taste. I've already snuck a couple before this. And this is just surprising. I probably would have not chose to use salt had it not been for this competition. And I think I'm gonna do really well in it. I'm very happy with how this beer turned out. That's why I like joining competitions like this, to kind of think outside the box when it comes to brewing beers, and it helps you become more of a well-rounded brewer long term, using different ingredients and different methods that you've never done before. And so really excited to kind of showcase this at the beer and branding event. I'm going to kind of do a little live event, going through, showing you what the event is like while I'm there, and letting you know how I did after the fact. I'm really excited to see the branding side of things, where they're going to create labels and 6-packs and that kind of thing, kind of showcasing this beer and all of the other beers that are entered for the competition at Noda. So I'm going to put in the link description below all of the ingredients, the full recipe, if you want to try to make this yourself. It is really a crowd pleaser. Like I said, salt is a feature in this one. You could tame that down if you wanted to, but I think with this little bit that we've added here, it actually does a lot for this beer. So if you have any questions, comments, as always, leave them in the video description below. I'd be happy to answer any questions or comments that you have. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Helps out the channel tremendously. And with that, happy brewing and cheers.